Welcome back. This is Joe Blasco, and we're here with Mike Westmore on MUATV's Spotlight on Success. I think that we lived the heyday. We were during that era. You know, I did the bladder technique in David Cronenberg's first film.
Right.
That was the first time it had been done for in a makeup purpose, and some aging techniques that I did in the late '60s, all were cotton and latex, but done with stretch and stipple method, where I embedded a certain kind of cloth into the latex to get a thicker. This is before we were putting gelatin into the rubber,
right,
to create a thicker type of stipple. We were the makeup artists, your family specifically, that took makeup to the next level, that we're developing and creating and making. And now here we are to this point where we've done all of this, we've created everything, and now we can't do it anymore.
Right, right.
Now they're doing it with computers. You know, not all of it, but
no, a lot of it. That's, I know on the 18 years on Star Trek. Of course, if they wanted somebody's neck to be 2 feet long, that had to go in a computer.
Yes.
But I would say 90% of everything that was done was done in the lab because of time factors and of costs. I mean, it got down to the point where they'd say, director would come in and say, I want a dozen laser blasts. And they go, you can have 3, you know? And so the same thing with me when they said, when we needed bladders. I mean, we had a number of aliens that we had pulsating, and it was a strange thing. So as you did, we hand make the bladders to the conformity that we wanted.
The first bladders were condoms and Tygon tubing.
Yeah.
And I was still trying to figure it out on the way to the set. How am I going to do this? And when I got there, I thought, you know, Harry Thomas used to tell me, you know, we used to take condoms and we'd cut them and we'd glue them onto the skin and we'd put the collodion onto the condom so that it would shrink up the condom in the shape of the scar, and we wouldn't put it that way, we wouldn't have to put it on the skin. And he says, and it really stretches, you can really stretch. And I'm thinking, stretch. Maybe if I put a condom over the end of the Tygon tubing and I put a pump at the other end, like an enema bottle pump, and when that goes in, it'll expand quickly, and that'll give the enough pressure that I need to push the foam latex out. I thought, it's worth a try. So we tried it, and it worked perfectly. That was the first type of bladder. And Dick Smith once told me, at dinner, he says, I'll tell you, you did do the first bladders. He says, because everybody thinks that I did bladders in The Exorcist on the stomach when the words come up. He says, that's not bladders. He says, I put acetone on the rubber and it came up.
Really?
So,
you know, Dick was very nice. I got a call one time. I've done a number of films in India, not myself going, but to create the appliances here. There's one actor over there, Kamal Hassan, who loves makeup. And so for 40 years I've been playing with Kamal in India.
I know, that's what you were telling me.
Yeah,
that's
and he just loves getting into
What is
doing
he's
all
the Lon
things.
Chaney of India?
He could, and he had just turned 50.
Right.
So
with Paul Muni.
Yeah. He just loves getting into all that kind of thing.
Your family did a lot of work with Paul Muni.
Peirce did.
It was Peirce.
In
That's
fact, Muni thanked Peirce when he accepted the Academy Award for Dr.
Not Pasteur.
Yes.
Was it Pasteur?
Louis Pasteur's
yes,
story.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a beautiful work, beautiful beard. He was known, Peirce was known especially for his beard work.
Yes.
Because there are stories about him having to use a different scissors every time he would cut. He'd put a scissors
Peirce could lay a beard, and he'd even use pink hair for the overlaying hair.
Yes.
And pink.
Shooting in black and white.
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah,
I got it. Yeah, that would work.
But you could sit and watch Peirce do it, and he was such a master with the irons, and has been doing so many years doing it. You couldn't copy his technique. It's like all the apprentices. Nobody really. Bob Romero, of course, his dad was a great beard person, and Bob's very talented.
He's
with
terrific.
The
He
curling
teaches here.
irons. Yes.
He teaches downstairs in the school.
Yeah, Bob's
he
wonderful.
does our hair work.
And he's probably the best that we have left.
A real personable guy too.
Yeah.
Really a good teacher. Really good teacher.
Well, I love the stories now when somebody, and one in particular that Maury Stein told me, is that a girl came in who needed a mustache, and she talked the company into understanding that she needed a new one every day, because when they came off at night, they were ruined. But she didn't know how to dress them. She didn't know how to clean them or dress them, so she would throw away the mustache every night and use a new one every day. So, but I mean, that's a lot of the things,
right.
situations
That's great.
we have now.
That's
But it took me, it's like with my apprenticeship, it took me 6 months. They stuck me in a room with bags of crepe wool to begin with, and I made beards every day, all day long for 6 months.
Right. Did they ever ask you to lay hair on your leg? Ben and I used to have he had me shave my leg here, and I would make mustaches on my leg.
It would be
all the way up, like a mustache.
It was all on the old green head.
Yeah. Those are good days, I'll tell you. You know, your career goes, I mean, I'm looking, you will not believe this man's career. It is remarkable. I mean, some of the titles here, let's just listen to these titles. This goes back, before I go through this, I met you years and years ago, and you will not remember.
But I do.
You do?
Tell me the story. No.
At ABC Television.
Yeah.
W.C. Fields.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you
I remember. Yeah.
And I was the little kid the guy that Rudy brought in. He said to me, Westmore's coming over here to do a makeup. Rudy Horvatish, they had a makeup for ABC Television. And Mike was coming over to ABC to do, what was his name from Family Feud? I can't think of the host of the show.
He was one of the big hosts.
Yeah. So they were
Monty Hall?
No, it wasn't Monty.
Was it Monty Hall?
No, it wasn't Monty. It was the fellow that did the Family Feud. He would kiss everybody. He was famous for kissing all the girls on the show. Anyway, you came over, and Rudy says, you go downstairs and you sit down there, and you sit in the corner. Don't you say a word. You go down and you watch him work. You learn how he does this. So the next time we can tell them we can do it here at ABC. We don't have to bring in a Westmore. So I went down, and I believe I might have introduced myself to you.
You did.
I sat there. It wasn't a pain in the ass to you, was I? No. Right. And I watched it.
No, I just glued him in.
It was terrific. It was great. But that was when we first met. So many years. It seems like, it had to have been 35 years ago or longer.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Anyway, look at this. I noticed that's not on here.
I don't remember what it was. It was that whatever game show that was. It was.
I think it was Family Feud.
No.
No.
It was before Family Feud.
I can't remember what it was. Anyway, so the Munsters.
Yep.
You worked the Munsters.
Yes. In fact, Eddie and I are still friends to this day. Yeah. When I was over at Paramount, he would call me like once a year when he was in town, and he'd come over and would.
Which character? You did Eddie's makeup?
I did Eddie, and I did Marilyn.
How great.
And then they would go to the set, and then I would go upstairs and run Fred's heads, and Grandpa didn't need anything, but I needed new ears for Eddie every day.
Right.
And they didn't know how to clean it up and reuse it again. So there was a new head.
Every day?
Yes, for Herman every day.
Wow, amazing. Who did the Herman's makeup? And the
Carl Silvera.
Carl Silvera.
Hearst did Grandpa, and that's why when you see the sideburns, how beautiful the hair work was.
It was amazing.
Yes.
So he was retired from Warner Brothers.
Yep.
And came over to work with Bud.
And basically, wasn't a lot going on at the House of Westmore.
Yes.
So he came over to the studio.
Yes.
And
how great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, I love it. What an experience that must have been. And there are 70 episodes that you worked on. And Land of the Lost, it goes on here, Capricorn 1.
Land of the Lost is a big cult thing. I still get letters from people wanting to know if I have anything around to sell.
Do you have any stories from that?
It was one of the first shows, like with green screens.
Yes.
Where they would people are walking around literally on boxes, and they'd say, "Look up there and scream." The actors go, "Ah!" And then all of a sudden you see the show put together, and it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex coming at them. When the show started off,
the beginnings of rotoscope.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when the show started, they had the slee stacks with the large lizards. I made those I got wetsuits, and I got the measurements off the guys and took it to a surfing place, and I said, "I want the zipper in the back." And they're going, "Zipper, how are they going to get out?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Just put the zippers in the back." So then I made a big sheet of scales, and it was slip latex. I just painted them in, let it dry. Right. And glued them on with barge all over the suit, and then took Shoe Magic paint that you buy at the shoe store, and painted these things, and just sprayed them so it was easy to touch up. If somebody rubbed something on.
How terrific.
So the slee stacks, but they were all large basketball players, and the first day we started to shoot, they had the three of them were standing up on top of this rock ledge walking around, and I'm looking up and I'm thinking, now their eyes are supposed to be black. Why do they look silver? Well, they had steamed up from the body heat on the inside of it. So that night I put a little piece of black mesh behind it, and that absorbed any moisture. But it was like, oh my God, one foot forward, and I'm going to have a slee stack. And then they had three what they called pacunis, which were little monkey people that were running around. I made all of them up and kept all them up. So my job every day was to make up Will Hawley and the dad, make up all three pacunis, and slip a slee stack into a suit. That was my job. And then I stayed with it for about 2 years or 3 years, and then I left. And Bob Seidel and my brother came in.
Bob Seidel.
And they had cut out, they didn't touch the slee stacks at all. It all became wardrobe, and they only had one pacuni. So I'm thinking, I killed my butt here for all this stuff.
That's amazing. We're going to show pictures of each one of these during this interview.
Yeah.
Our paths crossed also another time, because you had done the makeup for Witchy Poo,
right?
H&R Puff and stuff. And then when the show stopped, the appearances that Billy would make, she started over at ABC doing shows as Witchy Poo at ABC, and I can remember Rudy ordering some Witchy Poo noses from you, and he had me applying Witchy Poo's makeup. And then we have a picture. In fact, you can look around the walls here. There's a picture of me doing Witchy Poo.
Billy was wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice. But it was the thing is,
she's still around? She's still with us?
I haven't seen her for a long time.
Well, we have to find out. We have to find out. Billy Hayes, right?
Billy Hayes, yes. I would have the sculpture of the nose, how it would come out and the nose tips would come down like this. And I'd have her look at it and she'd say, that's fine, that's great. And I'd cast it up and we'd glue it on and she'd go, no, I want it about a 1/16 of an inch lower here. Okay, so I do it again, then we glue it on, and another nose, and she'd say, you know, it's tilted a little teeny bit this way, so we better do it again. I think I redid that thing.
If it makes you feel any better, she did the same thing with me at ABC.
I mean, they all looked alike. Every nose looked alike, but she'd put me through the...
I had 3 noses.
Yeah.
I had 3 noses, and Rudy said, well, we're not going to sculpt new noses here. Use these. And the edges, I mean, they must have been used 100 times. Yeah. They were like this. So I'd roll cotton, and I'd put a roll of cotton along the edge, and I'd put some tissue paper over it, and then put some latex over it to blend it in. And I'd get it all done, and she'd look at it, and she'd go, no, I think, can you make it so that it comes just a little more over here? Okay. So I'd lift it very, very carefully so I had an edge. Yeah. And I'd move it. And how's that? Good. And then I'd throw some adhesive under it and press it down. Yeah. I got it down.
Oh yeah, you went through the same.
You had to work with her.
Same hoops.
Oh boy, she was great though. I loved her. Rocky, amazing film. Tell me about Rocky.
Okay, let me.
Now this is.
I've got an interesting story.
Now you won an award for Rocky or no?
No, they hadn't started yet.
No.
I got a call to come over on this small budget film and meet this actor that was going to be a fight film. And so I went and I met Sly, and we did the test. And the first thing he said to me was, though, how are you related to Frank Westmore? And I said,
was that good or bad?
You tell me the story, and I'll tell you how I'm related. So he said he was doing a film with Robert Mitchum. He was a bit player, but he had lines on a film. Got very late at night, and Frank sent out for hamburgers for people. And Sly asked him if he could have a hamburger. And Frank said, yeah, get out of here, kid. Get lost. And so I said, that's a story? And he said, yeah. And I said to him, I don't know him. And he started laughing. You know, he started laughing. But when we were doing Rocky, it got down to doing the fights, and I was literally had Carl Weathers in one chair and Stallone in the other, and I would glue a piece on one, and they held a hair dryer and they were drying it. I'd go over and glue the other on. It got to the point where I told the producer, I said, I really need help, and the only really good help that was left the union was Frank, and he had a few days off. So I went to Stallone and I said, there's a situation. If you want the greatest help in the world or the not so great help,
You should have brought him a hamburger.
Frank's, I know. No, but the first thing he did when he walked in the door is he walked up to Stallone and apologized.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, no prompting, nothing. He walked in the door and saw him and walked over and apologized to him.
Right.
And so Frank was, stayed with me through he did it on Raging Bull too. Frank was with me on the, we were doing
another
the early
stages.
Film. Yeah.
You actually became known as the makeup artist to call.
I did nothing but fight
for
films
these
for about
fight
3
films.
years.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I did Rocky 1.
I'm surprised they didn't call you for Fight Club.
Yeah, well, I had all the molds.
Right, right.
You know,
oh, that's great.
I had swollen eyes in every shape and size.
But this was the first time that a makeup of that nature, to that extent, so realistically, had ever been really done.
Yeah.
You know, where I mean, it was so realistic.
Yeah.
It was just beautifully executed.
And the blood worked. I mean, the way the blood would run, because I had carried squirt bottles and just, you know, ready to get into the ring. It's as far as a makeup artist being prepared.
Yes. You
can't say, oh, it's back, you have to wait for me. Because Stallone would shoot. We did one day, we had 60 setups.
Really?
On one day. Yeah.
What were you using as blood? And how were you getting the continuity? Because that was before we had stay blood, or blood that would, you know, the inks.
Polaroid cameras.
You just have to match it.
Oh, same thing with Raging Bull, where I had to, because we would shoot the fight here, and then we would shoot an hour later, 3 months later, in some other city. So as far as the patch-up work and the Band-Aids and the stitching and everything, had to match 3 months later. So, I mean, that book is like that with Polaroids in it and things.
Those are historic. Do you still have them?
I have that book. The only book that I threw away and saved everyone after that. When I finished the picture, I said, well, that's fun, that's done. Goodbye, Rocky.
Yeah. Wow. You should keep these.
Well, you know, one thing I did keep, I made
museum stuff.
I made a cast of Stallone's face, from a cast of his face when he was 29, and I did a paper mache layup of a rice paper layup, and I have it in a box at home.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I did it from a copy of the first page of the script.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Which was neat.
Very artistic. Listen, Leonard Engelman worked with you on one of these pictures, didn't he? Or did Leonard take over one of the sequels?
Leonard took over sequel.
Yes.
Yes. No. Leonard took over, I think, 4, because I did 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Yeah.
And then somebody else, and I think Gary Litter might have done 6.
Yeah.
And Leonard did 4.
Yeah, Leonard worked with me for a very short time. It's funny. He worked with me here at the school for like 2.5 months. And I ran into him at the makeup show downtown the other day. And he says, you know, I've done commercials that have lasted longer than the time I worked for you. He's a very good makeup artist.
Excellent.
An excellent makeup artist. And he's always, and his hair work is absolutely flawless.
Leonard had just the amount of adaptability to be able to, and he loved doing it.
Yeah, well, he's like what I call a consummate makeup artist. He can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, he had the apprenticeship.
He was an apprentice also, wasn't he? At Universal as well.
He was the next one after me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Listen, to what
his
extent?
dad was a makeup artist.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was terrific. What a great, that had to have been a tremendous influence by having your father as a makeup artist, as you did, but you didn't know your father.
No.
Yeah. So you know, the thing that I came from 3,000 miles away, no relatives in makeup, but my relatives were the names that I saw on the screen. I grew up by those names. And so to grow up as a Westmore or as an Engelman, to follow like as a Nye, to follow in the footsteps of such great established names, it must be difficult.
Well, with me, I know there was pressure because everybody expected me to know everything and to be A+.
Yes.
So there literally was pressure to learn how to do it because it's like when I would do a beard, I would take the head with a beard on it down to Bob Don or Mark Riedel or Nick Marcelino and say, would you look at this and tell me, well, your hair's a little too thick here, you have to do this, do that, the blending, the ironing, take it back, rip it all off, start over again, do it again. So that went on for 3 months, or 6 months, just doing hair work like that. And I mean, just not Bud, but every makeup artist, Whitey Snyder, who was Marilyn Monroe's makeup artist, Harry Merritt.
I'm trying to get Ron to come in, Ron Snyder.
Oh, that would be
Harry Merritt, Harry Merritt.
Yeah. So all these people were my teachers.
Yes. Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really. I think back, and I'm so appreciative. I came into the makeup industry at the time when there was still a Lee Greenway, you know, and so many of the pioneers that I would rub shoulders with, and I would recognize the name, like Lee Greenway, for instance, at ABC or CBS actually. He says, "Kid, come on back here. I'm going to show you how to do an acid burn." So he pulls me in the back room, and he fills the sink with cold water, and he takes my hand, you know, he pours collodion all over my hand, and he immediately pushes my hand into the water, and it turns white, and it blisters up, and he pulled it out. He says, "See, that's an acid burn." You know, so I thought, well, okay.
And it's for real.
But, you know, yeah, exactly. But the thing is, it worked. It just, you know, it just turned white, and it really did. It, you know, it looked kind of funky to the eye, but to the camera, I could see how it could be interpreted.
Once you had all the color on it.
So I was really lucky. Ben and I, and all these, you know, the pioneers that took me under your wing, just as they took you under their wing. It's fabulous. What great stories. And we go on here. Rocky 2, Raging Bull, Victory, 2 Confessions. Rocky 3, First Blood. Here we go. Tell me something from First Blood.
First Blood, that was...
This is Rambo.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was supposed to go off and do Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Dolly Parton. And Stallone told me he wasn't going to be doing anything. And so like 2 weeks before I'm supposed to leave, he calls and said, "We're going to Canada to do a thing called First Blood." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, you told me you weren't going to be available and I'm on another show." "We're leaving in 2 weeks for Canada." Okay.
He's not listening.
I hung on the phone and called, and I actually got myself replaced on Best Little Whorehouse. And we went off to Canada. There were some great effects with sewing up his arm, and it was just the two of us down in a ravine. And my makeup case was actually a backpack because we actually had to climb ropes, and you couldn't have anything in your hands. And forget about powder puffs because everything was sweat and grease and dirt. So it was fun, doing it. But I know we got when we were down on the river, and as he's sewing his arm up, the scar had to bleed. I had a tube coming around from underneath that was for intravenous feeding of babies. And all of a sudden, we're all set and we're freezing. He and I are freezing together down there.
Tiny little tube,
And I start the blood and it's working. All of a sudden, it stops and it's not working. And so we pulled it out in a grain of sand. How that got in there, we don't know. But Sly took his thumb and he worked out that one little grain of sand. We hooked it up and then got the shot. Yeah.
How amazing.
Yeah. It was First Blood was a lot of fun. Working on, and Marion came up and she brought the kids and.
Your wife?
Yeah.
How many children do you have?
I have 3, and they're all basically working in the business.
Yes.
Michael was a film editor over at Paramount on Star Trek, and he loves construction work and printing, so he's going that direction. My middle actress is the controller of a major entertainment firm that manages directors and producers and actors and everything, and she's gone all the way up the ladder from secretary to the controller. There's only 4 presidents that are over her, and my youngest daughter Mackenzie is an actress. She's an actress, and she was on Passions for 10 years, and so between Michael and Michelle and Mackenzie, they all love what they're doing.
Yes. Did you ever wish that any of them had gone into makeup?
Michelle thought about it. I took Michael with me to work. He didn't like getting up early in the morning. Didn't like the idea. It didn't set well. Michelle actually toyed with the idea, but she has more of a head for numbers. She'd be a good attorney. She'd been a good doctor. Well, she tried pre-med and didn't like blood. Yes. So that was the end of that.
Yes.
But Mackenzie's really always wanted to kind of be an actress. It was in her blood from the time she was very young.
Yes. What praise or words of recognition can you recall receiving from any of your uncles that acknowledged that you had made it and that you had represented the Westmore name well?
But most of the time, while the uncles were alive, there was a period there when they all kind of passed away. I really didn't branch out into myself independently. I was always under somebody, under Bud, and working with other people doing things. So Most of them had passed away before I ever got to the point of...
where you wanted to do.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The work that you've done on Star Trek, which we'll talk about, is phenomenal.
And fun.
Department heading, such a tremendous undertaking. I mean, it's very much akin to a Planet of the Apes picture or a List of Adrian Messenger. But the film that I want to talk about now is that film which won you this beautiful gold statuette right here. And this is for the film Mask, all right? And it says here, if I can put my glasses on, you know, I've been working out. I've been going to the gym. I don't know if you can see a difference. I don't have gray hair anymore. I've lost 40 pounds. Going to the gym actually makes your hair darker. Did you know that? That with a little help from Rue. So anyway, back to this. But why I was saying that is it hasn't helped my eyes any. It's made me lose weight, the gym, and I may look a little better, but I can't see any better. So back to the glasses. Academy Award to Michael Westmore and Zoltan Illich for makeup for The Mask, 1985. That was a monumental film. Makeup-wise, I mean, that really brought makeup to another level. People really began to go, wow.
Well, it came out in a year when, it's like my competition for this was Color Purple and Ramo Williams.
Yes.
So it was a bigger undertaking. It's like a movie you'd see today, like Star Wars comes out against Best Little Whorehouse in Texas or something. You know, it was a big project, and I literally worked and experimented for 3 months on the makeup. I went into an interview with Bogdanovich, and it was interesting because there was a number of makeup artists, but it seems like as soon as I finished mine, it was like, when do you want to start? And they wanted to send me, the actual boy who lived here in Azusa, he wanted to go to Stanford. And so when he died, his mother gave his skull to the university, which is up at the medical school there. And when the film was even being shot, people in the neighborhood would come by and think it was really him. And Eric played into it.
How amazing that makeup was. How realistic. I mean, to imagine that someone actually looked that way and had to...
And it was worse. Actually, it was worse than the makeup. Because one of the things that Peter said, he said, what do you need to make this, you know, look like the boy? I said, we need somebody whose eyes, to begin with, are far apart. Well, it sounds good. Okay, what else? You know, and the lip here, enough space between the lip here. A nose that's maybe not too long and pointed because it's flat and is broadened out. Well, they hire Eric Stoltz, whose eyes are close together, has a long pointed nose, and not a lot of lip between here. So I had to adapt it for what it was. And then
you did the sculpting, obviously.
Yes, I did all the sculpting,
and the mold
making, ran the rubber and everything. And then Zoltan put him into it on a daily basis. And
so Zoltan applied the makeup.
Yes, and worked on the set. After I did all the tests and stuff, then brought Zoltan in, and because I still had to keep pumping heads out on a daily basis for him, because we did need new head every day. For that, although in retrospect, the way things learned how to clean stuff up in Star Trek, I should have started learning how to clean things up sooner. Wouldn't have to work as hard. What's so interesting about this project is that after all this time went by, the woman who actually wrote the story and knew the mother said to me 10 years ago, I want to write this into a musical. And if I do, will you recreate the makeup? I said, yeah, sure, yeah, quite great, give me a call. So it was last October, I got the call, and it's opening the Pasadena Playhouse, and had meetings with the director and everything, and it ran for a couple months over Pasadena. The music was fantastic. Right now, it's being rewritten, and possibly Broadway or off Broadway on the East Coast. But it was such a pleasure working in theater, which I had never really done before. I had to adapt the makeup so we could sing, which meant no upper lip on them, and it still had to have the jaw and the head and everything. And the boy that played the part was so amazing, because he's like 30 years old, and once in the makeup and in the clothes, he became 15 years old. He literally, this whole transformation came over him on the stage. And it was absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
And it's just it's a whole different atmosphere with the
You were
people and
reliving
everything.
the experience again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I would love it for it to
Yeah,
keep
for
going.
it to go to Broadway.
Yeah, to go
Oh.
to Broadway, yeah. And it should, because the music is, as I said, is just, blows you away.
I'd love to have seen that.
Well, it was there, and it's advertising.
Well, keep
It
in
needs
touch,
more
because what we'd
advertising.
like to do is we could cover that with MUA-TV.
Oh, that
I
would
can
been-
send a camera crew
Oh,
there.
that'd been wonderful.
And
Yeah.
we can actually, show you running the foam or whatever,
Yeah.
and then the application and
Yeah.
all, and then excerpts, bits and pieces
Yeah,
from the play.
that'd been great.
Give it some publicity. That's terrific. That's really great. Let me look on here. Let me go a little further here. You have, you also won a BAFTA, I believe, for that as well, not just the Oscar.
Not the
Did you
trophy,
get-
I was nominated.
You were nominated.
Nominated.
I see.
Yeah.
And just back to this, how many? 6 Emmys that you won? You actually won?
Emmys?
Yes.
9.
9 Emmys.
9 Emmys.
And the 1 Oscar. And how many nominations of television?
The Emmys are 42.
42.
And the Oscars is 4.
It's just amazing. If you go down, you have all of these people also. And what I love about what you've done is that, and I don't know whether this is now, part of the way that it's done, but in the past, obviously the department head would get all the credit and none of these people would ever be mentioned. You've kind of brought this to another level, aside from helping a lot of young people, which I know you have. I know that from experience, because you've taken a lot of my students, and I know many of my students have worked, Joe Rocco for one, with you on Star Trek. But you share the credit, with so many people, which was something that was never done before.
I never felt it was fair.
And rightly so.
If they put in an effort. I know even on Star Trek, of which the Emmys finally had to put an end to. But if I had a big show, and I had 20 people working there, now if it's just one day, no.
Right.
But we finally put a limit on it. Like if they worked 3 or more days, I put their name down on the Emmy nomination. So we would have 15 people. So there's a couple of our Emmys for Star Trek where we filled the stage.
Yes.
It looked like editors
That's
going
terrific.
up, with it. Jill has won several that way,
Yes.
and a number of the makeup artists have, because of just everybody put in a hard day's work, and they're deserving of it.
And back to Star Trek, there's an interesting thing is that I've been told stories that you would hand them a bag of stock pieces, maybe the same bag of the same stock pieces to each artist.
No, they're all different.
They're all different.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I had big cases of pull-out cases filled with noses, filled with ears, filled with half faces, filled with full faces.
And so be creative.
Just go in there. I'd pick out this here and put in the bag and say here, and paint them green.
Right.
And but having people like Jill and Todd McIntosh and Brad Look in particular, and Scott Wheeler, that I could literally do that, and they had fun with it.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was extra time, they'd put stripes and polka dots on them and do everything. But you knew you had to get the people glued in as fast as you could, and then you could play.
Yes. Another thing that you somewhat developed was the cleanup crew that would come in afterwards, so that the people that did the application could go home and get a good night's sleep.
And get back at 4 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just as much of an art to cleaning up a makeup as there is to putting it.
I know when we did.
And our Kelsey Fry, who's off there going like this in the background, she says, I used to do that.
On First Contact with the Star Trek Borgs, it took, because they had electronics on them that had to be undone and taken out of. We literally ran 2 crews. There was the nail-in crew in the morning, and the crew that took them out at night had to carefully take everything out, clean up what they could clean up for the next day, and put it out for the people coming in at 4 o'clock. So we actually almost ran crews around the clock.
Yeah, that's amazing. That kind of a department, I mean, that's honestly, like I said before, it's very similar to the Adrian Messenger Planet of the Apes type. There's a lot of responsibility there.
It was also a money-saving factor.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, because you're saving time.
And kept from somebody getting killed falling asleep.
Right, right. What do you've done a lot of film, a lot of television, a lot of film for television. What do you prefer? Major motion pictures, film, theatrical motion pictures, or television?
Things what I enjoyed about television, it moves a lot faster. I'm not one for sitting on the set.
Right. I agree.
It's a killer. I like teaching. At Star Trek, I got even a chance to teach, to be able to come in, and I'd have a sculptor doing something, and I'd say, well, you know, you're going in a good direction there. Go further. Go more. Let's bring it out more, or do something like that there. And in the paint jobs, if there was time left over, to be able to go down and say, you know, add a little bit more and add a little bit more. So I literally was a whirling dervish.
Right.
On there, but it was fun.
Isn't teaching a wonderful way to really hone your skills? Yeah. You taught for years, what, 15 years or so?
Yeah, at Valley.
At Valley College.
Yes. Yeah. But I enjoyed working, I mean, particularly, no matter how fast or slow it went, with Elizabeth Taylor. She was a dream to work with. Because you go to work and it's your, you know, everybody thought I was a producer or something. I would dress up every day and carry a briefcase with everything in it. But Taylor was so wonderful because she'd send to Chasen's for chili and chop the onions up and do everything. And Stallone was great to work with. I was able to have a lot of interaction. Brent Spiner on Next Generation on Star Trek. Brent was wonderful to work with.
Did you design, like for instance, the Borg and these really incredible characters? Were you responsible for designing the look?
Head up.
From the head up. I see. So you designed the Borg. You work with
for the head,
with
costume
artists,
designer.
Okay, I see.
No, I didn't have it. I did it myself. I sketched it and like all the eyes.
So you actually did the drawings and all. So you also draw.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Could we get some the original pictures?
I probably I have them somewhere.
Okay, I think what we have, what we've got is he came in with these huge books, amazing books, and they're downstairs, and we're scanning them, and we're going to be inserting them during this interview.
Great.
So if you want, you can point out the ones that you like. Let me go on here. I have, oh my God, Mike, there's so much, and I don't want to leave anything out. There were so many spin-offs from Star Trek. Oh, let me ask you this. Freddie Phillips, the original Star Trek, right?
And his daughter Jana worked for me.
Isn't that great?
She used to make the ears at home in the kitchen for Freddie.
Yes. And Johnny Chambers.
And John did too.
Worked on that.
Yep. John did the original Spock ears.
Yes, that's right. And it seems like there's so much synergistic relationships, so many synergistic relationships that are going on that have made that there's feelers that go out from so many central hubs of mentors, so to say, that have helped to perpetuate, the evolution of makeup artistry, and John Chambers being one of them, the Westmores being the most, I would say, in the history of makeup. And some cosmetic companies.
There's the Bow family.
Yeah, the Bows.
Now it's interesting.
The Bermans.
The Bermans. For Makeup Artist Magazine, this next issue that they have coming out is geared towards Father's Day.
Yeah.
So I write an article called Westmore's Wisdom in it. And so Heather asked me, she said, why don't you write an article on makeup artists and their fathers? And so Stephen Anderson and David Anderson, wasn't able to get a hold of a lot of people, but there was a half a dozen, Dory Blackman and Charlie Blackman, her dad, their relationships that they had with their fathers, how they learned.
Yes.
Some of them, the fathers didn't teach them at all. Somebody else, they got it from other mentors, friends of the family. Or people like Jeff Don, whose dad Bob actually set up a thing in the garage for him and taught him in the garage, and a comment at the end of it of what they thought of their relationship in that, and it's wonderful. So that'll be an article coming out in the next magazine.
Excellent. That's Westmore's Wisdom. If you don't already have the subscription to Makeup Artist Magazine, you really should. Every makeup artist should, because there's so many wonderful things, so many articles. Yours being one of them, Westmore's Wisdom. And how long have you been writing that? It's been a while, since the beginning.
I think since 2000.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it's been that long. It's like
when do you find the time to do that?
Well, and it's funny because I never really plan on what I'm going to write about. It's like something happens at the last minute. It's like Heather calling me and suggesting that. All of a sudden, and I've only been rejected once. One story which I had to read another one quick because I did one on popcorn. Why I did, but
using popcorn.
Yeah, the history of popcorn.
Oh my God!
Because of theaters, because Michael lets me do whatever I want to do. So that was like stretching too far out. It's like when
were you testing him to see if he was reading
no,
what you were writing?
Yeah. But there were a lot of historical questions that came back. Are you sure that would happen in 1737? One day on Star Trek, which in doing these multi-piece things, go ahead and do it.
Right.
One guy was bald-headed that came in, and one of the makeup artists had glued a face on top of the guy's head. And I said, no, that ain't gonna work, unless he bends over and walks into the place.
With his head down.
Yeah, with his head down, so that had to go. So it's like, okay, you stretch the envelope too far.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Mr. Potato Man.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Great. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Other than Star Trek and The Mask, what would you? Are there any other projects that stand out in your mind as being really, really great projects that you really enjoyed?
I enjoyed them all, and it's hard to pinpoint anything. I mean, Raging Bull was a solid 14 months.
Yes.
It was like a lifetime, and when it ended, it's like there was a void because all of a sudden
it's gone. That part of your life.
Yeah, that's over with. Yeah. And I said to myself, I probably will never get another movie that I've enjoyed so much working on it, and it's true. Yeah. I mean, that to me was probably Mask was a challenge and everything, but Raging Bull was something
really
every day, because every day something went on, and his face changed, where with Mask it was like once the nuts and bolts were done, we were done.
A real challenge, just for continuity.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Did you ever, obviously there were apprentices, but did you ever, can you pick out one person that you can say that you honestly have taught from beginning to end, that during your career? Is there any one person specifically that that you can say, I taught them?
There's a lot of them. All the way through, I can't say all the way through, but the apprentices that all came in after me, I showed them, which was Leonard Engelman and Steve Abrams and the other ones, Charlie Sorkin. I was involved in showing them how to do things because I was the youngest and the first in line to be able to pass on what I had. But over the years, people like Jerry Quist, who was Bruce Willis's makeup artist, started working Jerry when he was 17 years old and took him into Masters of the Universe, and all of a sudden the union list was totally used up. Yes. So I said to Jerry, come on, we're going to teach you how to glue hair on. You're going to do Beast Man. So he got us 30 days in.
That is great.
He didn't know how to do anything else except put Beast Man together, but he got his days in doing that. So it's there's been, I would say, hundreds of them over the years that I've been involved in
young people.
In
I've noticed that you have always had a crew.
Well, from Valley College.
Sure.
John and Margaret Elliott.
We have to stop.
Okay.
Just for 1 second, and we'll get back to John and Margaret right after these words. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Mike Westmore right after this.